Sometimes when it comes to highly rated prospects, they're a product of hype, propaganda, certain narratives that the media puts forth, and they're a snowball that builds up for a year plus in many cases. But then you have those other times where guys are highly rated prospects and it's legitimate. You see those players and you know that they're a big deal. You know they're a cut above the rest, and you know they're going to be big time stars at the NFL level. You just see it, you feel it, you know it, you own it. And you sit there and look at a guy and you say, if somebody doesn't agree with that, you wonder how stupid can they really freaking be. And in particular, if you have an NFL front office, an NFL scouting department that doesn't agree with that, you wonder again how stupid they could be and why the hell they would have their job. There are just those certain special players that are cut above the rest when it comes to their draft class most years anyways. And this year you've got a couple of them, and I think one of those guys beyond question to me has to be Jalen Ramsey. Sometimes the reality doesn't match the hype. See somebody like a Joey Bosa, a Robert Nkemdiche. But sometimes that reality exceeds the hype. And I look at guys like Miles Jack and a guy like Jalen Ramsey as a perfect example of that. Talk about a guy 6'1", 205 pounds, junior from Florida State, who started his Seminoles career at safety this past year in 2015 for head coach Jimbo Fisher. He manned the corner position. And you just watching him, even though you felt that he was out of position at corner, he still did the best he could. You know that you were still watching a special football player who transcended a position. You knew that this guy was a stud at the college level, and you get that feeling he could be an even bigger stud at the NFL level, especially when he's utilized at the position he should be utilized, which is safety. When I watch Jalen Ramsey on film, there's just so much to like, and frankly, not a lot to not like. And even the things that I don't like or have concerns about seem to be more nitpicks than they are truly legitimate concerns. All of those things that I would view as weaknesses or questions, or as they would say in the corporate world, opportunity areas. They're things that could be easily fixed, worked on, coached up, and taken care of. So once he takes care of those things, the sky's the absolute limit. In terms of Jalen Ramsey, what does he got? What does he bring to the table? What makes him so special in terms of prospects this year? Height and length as a defensive back, 6'1", 205 pounds. Very strong too. A guy that, for a defensive back, you don't always think of defensive backs as being strong, but he is strong, and more importantly than that, he plays with a physicality that can play well as a press man corner on the outside, which is what he primarily was for Florida State in 2015, but a physicality that also bodes well to playing center field at the safety position. This is a guy that brings it consistently. This is a guy that can hit you. This is a guy that's not afraid to mix it up with really good abilities in terms of actual press coverage on the outside. If he can get his hands on you and he can guide you and he can force you into a spot, he can pretty much take you out of the play. But it's more than just that. You look at a guy with really good awareness for his understanding where he is on the football field and where he needs to be. The instincts to be able to anticipate a play and jump the play and make big plays happen. A guy that has a lot of experience as a blitzer, especially going back to his safety days at Florida State. And he was a very effective blitzer coming off of the corner at 205 pounds with that speed that he has. You're talking about a guy that has all types of versatility. He's played at safety in different roles. He's played outside at corner. A guy, when we talk about physicality, he's a really good tackler. Sometimes when you look at defensive backs, sometimes you got guys that are good tacklers and sometimes they're not. Jalen Ramsey can bring it. Jalen Ramsey is a dude that you trust on the outside to be somebody that can make that one-on-one tackle. He's the one you can sit there and trust, you feel, to tackle a 225-pound, 230-pound running back coming out of the backfield. But there's more than just that, too. It's some of the intangibles that I see. This dude is a freaking hoss, a beast on special teams as a gunner, as a defender. I love the way he plays on special teams and the effort that he puts forth on special teams. It speaks to his overall desire to play the game of football. And you see leadership out of him. You see that he's an alpha dog. Like you have alpha dogs, beta dogs, and then you have the omegas, the followers, the trail ends. Jalen Ramsey, you could just tell. You see it. You sense it. He's an alpha dog. He is a leader. He is a guy that other men want to rally behind and play football with. And when you're talking about potentially taking a safety very, very high in the NFL draft, you don't just want a great player, you want a great leader too. You want somebody that can take command of that defensive huddle. You want somebody that can take command, be the guy to call the shots, set up the defense, set up the secondary. And Jalen Ramsey shows me all of those traits and so much more. But even when it comes to those questions, again, we're talking about a guy 6'1", 205 pounds that can run in the low 4.4s. There's not a lot of weaknesses there, but there are still some concern areas, I suppose you could say. I look at his stop-start recovery and his initial quickness. He's not the quickest guy in the world in terms of in a short area, and if he's in a situation where he has to stop and then start again, I think it's something he could be a little bit vulnerable to as an outside press corner at the NFL level. Certain quicker, shiftier types of wide receivers that maybe play in the slot in particular may give him some fits, may give him some problems. You might say, well, Antonio Brown will give him problems. Sure, but Antonio Brown might be the best receiver in the National Football League. He gives everybody problems. Let's put it that way. But he might struggle against a guy like a T.Y. Hilton and, guys of that type. Those smaller, quicker twitch athletes could give Jalen Ramsey some trouble, especially with double moves because of their superior quickness to his. And that's something that I think could be a little concerning for him in terms of playing at the corner position at the NFL level. And frankly, I think it's ridiculous that anybody would want him to play the corner position at the NFL level. Because he could be a Pro Bowl corner, sure, but he could be an All-Pro Hall of Fame safety. Now, in terms of him as a safety, one thing that concerns me a little bit is he does have a tendency to tackle kind of high. Now, because of his strength, because of his physicality, because of his toughness, he can do that, but I don't know if he can do that as consistently at the NFL level. So there might be a concern to me. Sometimes he goes up too high to tackle somebody that he shouldn't be going so high to tackle, and that guy is able to run through his arm tackle. And you see that on film. I mean, he was a vicious tackler. He really was. He'd get your hands on you, and he'd throw you to the damn ground. But again, that's at the college level. Is that going to necessarily work at the NFL level? I don't know. I'd like to see him go a little bit lower when he's tackling somebody to increase the level of likelihood that it's going to be a sure and successful tackle. Also, in terms of how he was deployed even at Florida State as a safety, he played a lot in the box, and he played a lot in the slot. Not a lot of experience playing back, playing in a 2D, playing in a 3D. Not a lot of center field experience. I mean, and it speaks more so to the strength of his versatility and how many different things he could do on the football field and just how good of a player he was on the football field that, frankly, you didn't always want to waste him 20 yards away from the line of scrimmage. I get that, and I understand that. And that's how I would have deployed him as a safety, too. I want that guy as close to the ball as he possibly can be. But at the NFL level, he's going to be best suited to play free safety. And at times, the free safety is going to have to be the center fielder. He is going to have to be 15, 20 yards away from the line of scrimmage. And you could utilize Jalen Ramsey in all these other ways, and he could be incredibly effective and potentially dominant as a player. But it is going to be a bit of a transition. There could be times where I can envision Jalen Ramsey early on in his NFL career getting beat deep when he's supposed to have single high safety or cover two responsibilities because he's not comfortable in that role and he's not familiar with that role, and he could put himself into some bad situations. But again, when I talk about the tendency to tackle too high, the experience of playing high safety, those are things that are coachable. Those are things you can work on. Even quickness and stop-start recovery. Again, those are things that you can work on and you can improve on. The only other thing that he really needs to work on, and he does need to really work on it, is his hands. He doesn't have great hands. Because again, you look at a guy, 6'1", 205, running low 4.4s. Why is he playing defensive back? You frankly could say because he can't catch. And, not saying he can't catch at all. It's just not one of his biggest strengths. It's not in his wheelhouse of the great things he can do because he does so many other things very, very well. So you can hit the judge machine. You could do other things. You want an example of his hands not being great? Look at that national championship semifinal in the 2014 season against Oregon. Marcus Mariota's rolling out right, throws back across his body, really a throw that frankly shouldn't be made. Jalen Ramsey's in perfect position to make the pick, and instead of making the pick, he goes up for it, it hits his hands, and he drops it. It's not contested or anything. He just drops it. It's right there. It hit him in the worst possible spot, you would argue, his hands. He needs to work on his hands. But again, something that can be coached up, something that you can work on, something that can be improved. Just because he's not great at it now doesn't mean that he won't be great at it. And when you look at all the other things he does so well, If he even improves in a couple of these areas, oh my God, how special is this dude going to be? In terms of an NFL comparison, two guys come to mind for me, and these are two really good comparisons for me. Looking at it in terms of a corner, I say Peanut Tillman. Peanut Tillman's ball skills, were outstanding. For years, we're going to be talking about the Peanut punch. But Peanut had really good ball skills in terms of knocking the ball away, being able to locate the ball. He was a guy that could pick off passes. He had better hands to a certain degree than Jalen Ramsey does now. But similar type of players, guys with good height and length and strength and physicality, good intellect for the game of football, awareness and instincts. Ramsey, I think you could do more with than Peanut Tillman, but there are always for years that thought process among many Bears fans, myself included, that Peanut Tillman's really good as a corner, but he could potentially be special as a free safety. And the Bears, over the years, just never moved him to safety. Maybe Peanut didn't want to go there, or they didn't want to move him there. I don't know. But you're talking about a guy that was a really good tackler, that played hard on special teams, was a leader on a defense. I see a lot of those similarities when I see Jalen Ramsey. He's just a better athlete and has more overall upside. No disrespect to Peanut, because I love Peanut. The other guy I think of a lot is Eric Berry. The 5th overall pick coming out of Tennessee in the 2010 draft. Similar type of guy in the sense of a lot of people were questioning, were you going to play him at safety at the NFL level? And if you did, how high could you actually draft him? Or is he going to play corner? And, to me, when I saw Eric Berry heading into that 2010 draft, it was him, and then it was Ndamukong Suh. It was actually Ndamukong Suh, then Eric Berry. Those are the two guys that I saw going into that draft that I thought were truly special. I thought those two guys were special in that draft. And part of my thing about Eric Berry was he could do so many things. He's a wonderful player, but you need to play him where he's best at. And playing him at corner at the NFL level is just idiotic. And thankfully, the Kansas City Chiefs quickly realized that you just need to deploy him at safety and let him be a Pro Bowl player there. And that's exactly what the hell he is, even coming back from that cancer scare. He came back in 2015 and was really, really good. He was a Pro Bowler. When I look at Jalen Ramsey, a lot of similarities again: height, length, strength, physicality, pretty good speed, can do a lot of different things, a good mind for the game. I just look at him and I just think that Jalen Ramsey is a special player. And that's the bottom line. So I think the comparisons to Eric Berry, Peanut Tillman, in terms of the style of play, the type of players they all were and are, and what Jalen Ramsey can be, I think they're appropriate comparisons. Look, I'm going to tell you this much flat out. I know in some mock drafts in the past I've had Ramsey going all over the place. But as I talk about some of those mock drafts, that even when I put somebody somewhere, that doesn't mean necessarily that I agree with it or I think that's what's going to happen. It's just different scenarios that play out and what have you. But when I tell you something in terms of I think a guy is this and this is where a guy should be, that's when you start to pay attention. That's when you start to listen to it. When it comes to Jalen Ramsey, I've talked about it before in other videos, that there are 6 guys that are cut above the rest in this draft to me, and they are the guys that should be the first 6 picks in this draft in some configuration or order. Laramie Tunsil, Carson Wentz, Ezekiel Elliott, Jalen Ramsey, Miles Jack, DeForest Buckner. Those are the 6 guys to me that should be the first 6 picks in this draft. If there is any justice, if the people involved with the NFL in these scouting departments, in these front offices, are any fucking good at their jobs at all. And when it comes to Jalen Ramsey, you look at a guy, and you can make a very strong argument that he is perhaps the number 1 football player in this entire 2016 NFL draft. This dude is special. This dude is a stud. This dude is a beast. And I'd be stunned if he doesn't become a multiple-time Pro Bowler, if not all-pro player at the NFL level. If you're sitting there at number 3 and you're San Diego, yes, it would seem kind of odd to let Eric Weddle walk just to bring in a Jalen Ramsey with that number 3 overall pick. Jalen Ramsey will be a better football player at the NFL level than Eric Weddle, and that's not a bad thing. Or if they don't take him, the Cowboys at number 4, damn if you just took Byron Jones last year. You take Jalen Ramsey this year and you figure it out because the dude's that special. Or if you're the Jaguars and there's no Miles Jack and you don't like any of the pass rushers and Jalen Ramsey is sitting there, you need a big impact player in that secondary as much as anything else, as much money as you've spent on that front 7 over the years. You need a difference maker in the back end of that defense. And then at pick 6, if he somehow, someway managed to be there because 5 other teams did something else and went different directions, and Jalen Ramsey was the 6th sixth guy on the board. You know he's not making it past Baltimore because I can't envision Ozzie Newsome being that stupid to draft somebody like a Joey Bosa or something like that if Ramsey was on the board. And if he did, he would just be stupid, period. I cannot for the life of me understand how there are some people that would rate a Joey Bosa higher on their draft board than Jalen Ramsey. It just makes absolutely no fucking sense to me. Jalen Ramsey could do so many more things on the football field. Bosa is a solid football player, a good football player. But that might be all he ever is at the NFL level. He may have maxed out his potential. Jalen Ramsey is just starting to scratch the surface of his potential. He's already a really good football player and should, for all intents and purposes, be a special one at the NFL level. Beyond question, one of the truly elite top talents in this year's draft class. If, frankly, he doesn't go in those first 6 picks, and I could argue if he doesn't go in the first 4 to 5 picks, there's something wrong with the NFL draft process, and that means a lot of teams are idiots. And if you hear any reports about certain teams grading Ramsey as a mid to low first-round pick or a second-round pick, and it's one of your teams you think, then you really need to question their intelligence when it comes to evaluating draft prospects because they are just fucking idiots, period. Ramsey's a stud. I'd be stunned if he doesn't prove so at the NFL level.